Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we are diving deep into one of the most persistent, most fascinating conspiracy theories on the planet, the Illuminati. We're going to trace its absolutely bizarre journey from a real, very short-lived secret society to a global myth that just refuses to go away. Let's jump right in. But first, let me just throw this out there. What if this enormous theory, this whole web of secrets and symbols that supposedly runs the world, didn't actually start with some shadowy plot, but with a prank? Just keep that little thought in the back of your mind as we go through this.
I mean, we all know the modern story, right? You've heard it. This idea of a super powerful secret group of elites. We're talking celebrities like Beyoncé and Jay-Z, even politicians who are secretly pulling all the strings. The story goes that we're all just pawns in their massive global chess game.
But that's the myth. To really understand how we got here, we've got to rewind the clock, way back. Because the real story, it doesn't start in Hollywood or Washington, D.C. It starts in 18th century Bavaria.
So, get this. The original Order of the Illuminati was a real thing. It was founded by a German philosophy professor, Adam Weishaupt, who was just completely fed up with the government and the church controlling everything. He thought they were holding people back, so his goal was to create a safe space for reason, science, and free thinking. The name itself, Illuminati, just means the enlightened ones.
But here's what's so wild about the actual historical Illuminati. Check out its lifespan. It was founded in 1776, and by 1787, just 11 years later, it was over. Poof, gone, discovered, outlawed, and totally wiped out. So you gotta ask, how did it fall apart so fast?
Well, the collapse was fast and it was dramatic. It was pretty much a perfect storm of betrayal from the inside and some seriously shocking discoveries by the authorities. So, what happened was, a member basically snitched on them. The Duke of Bavaria's police raided another member's house, and they hit the jackpot. They found files with all their secrets. Plans for a women's branch, which was radical back then. Medical recipes for things like abortion, a huge no-no. Recipes for invisible ink. I mean, classic spy stuff. But the real killer? Evidence of plots against the state. That was it. The Duke didn't just ban them, he issued a death sentence for any members he could find. And here is where the story takes this absolutely unbelievable turn. After getting crushed, the Illuminati just vanished. For almost 200 years, it was nothing more than a weird footnote in a history book. And then, the hippies showed up.
Okay, so let's fast forward to the 1960s in America. It's a time of massive upheaval. You've got anti-war protests, a huge generation gap, and this powerful counterculture movement that was questioning absolutely everything about the establishment. The hippies were all about rebellion, you know? They were against the Vietnam War, against consumerism, and they absolutely loved to challenge authority. But one of their favorite weapons wasn't a protest sign, it was a good prank. They loved using satire to poke holes in the system and show everyone how absurd they thought it was.
And this led to something with, well, a very memorable name, Operation Mindfuck. Yep, you heard that right. The whole goal was to mess with the establishment by just flooding society with fake news and crazy, contradictory conspiracy theories. The idea was to make people question everything they were being told. And that long-dead, spooky-sounding Illuminati, they were the perfect villains for the prank.
So here's the kicker. They started sarcastically blaming everything on the Illuminati. A political assassination? The Illuminati. The price of bread went up? Totally the Illuminati. It was all a big joke meant to show how easily people could be fooled. The only problem was, the joke was a little too believable, and some people didn't get the punchline. They started to think it was real.
And that little satirical spark was about to hit a giant can of gasoline. What started as this niche counterculture prank got supercharged by two things that would turn it into the global monster we know today: pop culture and, of course, the internet.
First, the satirical book series called the Illuminatus Trilogy became a huge cult hit and kept the joke alive. But then, decades later, boom, the floodgates opened. You had blockbuster books and movies like Angels and Demons, The Da Vinci Code, and National Treasure. Suddenly, everyone was talking about secret societies and hidden symbols.
You see, the original, real Illuminati used symbols, but they had pretty straightforward meanings. The Owl of Minerva, that was a classic symbol for wisdom. A pyramid, it just represented a hierarchy, with the most enlightened people at the top. But in the modern myth,
Oh, those symbols get a total horror movie makeover. That all-seeing eye you see on the US dollar bill is suddenly a sign of constant, creepy surveillance. And then they throw in the number 666, the number of the beast from the Bible, just to add this dark, sinister flavor to the whole thing.
And it's not just symbols, it's words too. This is a huge one. Back in 2022, when President Joe Biden mentioned a new world order, the internet just exploded. Conspiracy theorists were like, "See, he said it!" But context is everything. If you look at what was happening, he was talking about massive global shifts, the supply chain mess after COVID, the war in Ukraine, sanctions on Russia. He was talking about a new arrangement of global power, not a secret takeover.
Now, for a lot of believers, this is where it gets really compelling. They point to this really disturbing pattern. You have celebrities like Kanye West, Michael Jackson, even Tupac, who all spoke out about a secret group controlling the entertainment industry. And what happened? They faced career trouble, public backlash, or worse. Even Jim Carrey's career seemed to stall after he openly mocked the idea. Coincidence? Maybe. But for a lot of people, that pattern looks a little too perfect.
But on the flip side, what do you do when people start accusing you of being in a global cabal? Well, a lot of celebrities today just make a joke out of it, like the Indian artist Diljit Dosanjh, who got accused and then cleverly named his next tour the Illuminati Tour. It's a classic move, right? Kind of like Chandler from Friends using sarcasm as a shield. You own the joke and you suck the power right out of it.
So after this whole trip, from an 18th century secret society to a 1960s prank, all the way to a global online obsession, where does that leave us? I mean, what are we actually supposed to believe here?
You know, the human brain is an amazing thing. It is literally wired to find patterns. That's how we survive. But sometimes that pattern-finding machine can go into overdrive. As one person joked, it can get to the point where people are so paranoid they worry that a triangular samosa is a secret Illuminati symbol. And that really brings us to the most important question. This whole story isn't really about a secret society in a smoke-filled room. It's about us. It's a mirror showing how ideas can morph and spread, and how easily a joke, a simple prank, can become a deeply held belief for millions. So it forces us to ask ourselves, in a world just drowning in information, where do we draw the line between being a healthy skeptic and falling into harmful paranoia?